"Sir," she called out, quickening her pace, "are you okay?" The man turned around, his eyes wild with panic. When he saw Victoria approaching, a black woman in a hoodie moving fast in his direction, he stumbled backward. "Stay away from me," he slurred, clutching his chest. "I don't have any cash. Please, just don't hurt me." Victoria stopped dead in her tracks. "Hurt you? I'm trying to help." "Help?" He laughed bitterly, swaying on his feet. "Right, look, I'll give you whatever you want, just don't—" His words trailed off as his knees buckled. He collapsed forward, his head striking the curb with a sickening crack. Blood immediately began pooling beneath his skull. Across the street, 3 men emerged from the shadows, moving toward them fast. "Yo, white boy in Harlem with a Rolex," one called out. "This our lucky night." Victoria looked at the bleeding man who'd just accused her of trying to rob him. Then she looked at the actual criminals approaching. She had seconds to decide. Walk away and let him face the consequences of his assumptions, or save the life of someone who saw her as a threat. What happened next would make this billionaire lose sleep for weeks. Instead of walking away, Victoria dropped to her knees beside him. "Sir, can you hear me?" She pressed her hand against the gash on his forehead, her nursing training kicking in. "You're bleeding pretty bad." The approaching men were halfway across the street now. "Aye, lady," one shouted. "That's our friend you helping. We got this." Victoria didn't believe that for a second. She hooked her arms under the unconscious man's shoulders and dragged him toward the nearest apartment building. Her back screamed in protest. 12-hour shifts weren't supposed to end with hauling grown men to safety. "Mind your business, girl," one of the men yelled, now jogging toward them. Victoria got the building door open, just as footsteps splashed through the puddle where the man had been lying. She pulled him inside and slammed the door, breathing hard. That's when she found his wallet scattered across the floor, and that's when everything changed. Harrison Caldwell, Chairman CEO, Caldwell Hospitality Empire. Victoria's breath caught. She'd seen those hotels, the Caldwell Manhattan, the Caldwell Plaza. This man was worth $3.2 billion, according to Forbes, the same man who thought she was trying to mug him. She pulled out her phone and dialed 911. "I need an ambulance at 421 West 125th Street. Man in his 50s, head injury, possibly intoxicated." While they waited, Harrison stirred. His eyes fluttered open, unfocused and glassy. "What happened?" he mumbled. "You fell and hit your head," Victoria said gently. "Paramedics are coming." He tried to sit up, then winced. "My wallet. Did you—" "It's right here." She handed it to him, cards neatly arranged. "Everything's there." Harrison stared at her, confusion replacing fear. You helped me?" "Yeah. But I thought you were—" He trailed off, the memory clearly returning. His face flushed with shame. "Oh, God, I'm so sorry. I assumed that I was going to rob you because I'm black, and this is Harlem." Victoria's voice was matter-of-fact, not angry, just tired. Harrison closed his eyes. "Yes, and I am deeply, deeply ashamed." The paramedics arrived, checked him over, and declared him stable but recommended observation for the head injury. As they loaded him onto the stretcher, Harrison grabbed Victoria's wrist. "What's your name?" "Victoria Parker." "Victoria." He struggled to focus on her face. "I need to make this right." "You don't need to do anything, just maybe next time don't assume the worst about people trying to help you." The ambulance pulled away, leaving Victoria standing in the rain, wondering if she'd ever see him again. She hoped not. Rich white men who assumed she was a criminal weren't exactly her favorite people to be around. 2 weeks later, Harrison Caldwell hadn't slept soundly since that night. The image of Victoria's face, calm and focused as she helped him, contrasted sharply with his own panicked, prejudiced assumptions. He'd spent days wrestling with his guilt, the stark realization of his unconscious bias gnawing at him. But there was something else eating at him, something he hadn't told Victoria that night. The reason he'd been drunk, stumbling through Harlem at 3 a.m., wasn't random. He'd been fleeing his own hotel, the Caldwell Riverside, just 6 blocks away. He'd discovered something that made his blood run cold, something that could destroy everything he'd built. His own property manager had been using the hotel to launder money for the Torino crime family. $2.3 million had been washed through fake invoices over 18 months. When Harrison confronted the manager, the man had laughed. "You think you're clean, Mr. Caldwell? You think your empire is built on honest money? Check your books from the early days." That's when Harrison had started drinking. That's when the truth hit him. Some of his first properties, the foundation of his fortune, had been purchased with dirty money he'd willfully ignored. He'd been running from that truth when Victoria found him. Now, sitting in his penthouse office overlooking Central Park, Harrison made a decision that would change everything. Victoria was restocking supplies in the hospital break room when her supervisor approached with a strange expression. "Victoria, there's someone here to see you. Says it's important." "I'm not in trouble, am I?" "I don't think so. He's in conference room B." Victoria walked down the hall, mentally running through possibilities. Had she made a mistake with a patient? Forgotten to file paperwork? She opened the conference room door and froze. Harrison Caldwell sat at the table, looking nothing like the drunk, bleeding man she'd rescued. His hair was perfectly styled, his navy suit probably cost more than her monthly rent, and his presence filled the room with quiet authority. "Miss Parker?" He stood up, extending his hand. "Thank you for agreeing to see me." Victoria shook his hand warily. "Mr. Caldwell, you look better." "I feel better. Thanks to you." He gestured to a chair. "Please sit. I have something to discuss with you. If this is about an apology, you already—" "It's not about an apology." "Well, not entirely." Harrison opened a leather portfolio on the table. "Miss Parker, I've spent the last 2 weeks learning about you." Victoria's stomach dropped. "Learning about me?" "You graduated top of your class from nursing school at Columbia. You work nights here while studying for your nurse practitioner degree at NYU. You support your grandmother, Ruby Parker, who raised you after your parents died in a car accident when you were 12. His voice softened. "And 2 weeks ago, you saved the life of a man who treated you with unconscious racism and prejudice." "I was just doing what anyone would do." "No," Harrison said firmly. "Most people would have walked away, especially after how I treated you. But you stayed. You helped. You probably saved my life." He slid a thick folder across the table, but his expression was darker than she expected. "I want to give you something. But first, you need to know the whole truth." Victoria opened the folder. Legal documents, property deeds, financial statements, all with her name on them. "What is this?" "The Riverside Hotel on 135th Street, 68 rooms, prime location. I'm giving it to you." His voice was heavy. "But Victoria, this isn't just generosity. This is penance." Victoria stared at him. "Penance?" Harrison's hands clenched. "That hotel, my hotel, has been used to launder money for criminals. The property manager I trusted was working with the Torino family, washing their drug money through fake renovations and phantom vendors." Victoria's blood ran cold. "And you knew?" "I suspected. For months I suspected and did nothing because the hotel was profitable." His voice broke. "I was a coward. That night you found me, I'd finally confronted the manager. He told me things about my own business that made me realize I'd been complicit in ways I never wanted to admit. So you're giving me a criminal enterprise. I'm giving you a chance to clean it up. The FBI is already investigating, but they need someone on the inside, someone honest, someone who can't be bought or intimidated." He met her eyes. "Someone like you." Victoria laughed, a short, sharp sound. "You want me to be an undercover FBI informant? I want you to be what I should have been, someone who does the right thing even when it's dangerous." That night, Victoria sat in her grandmother's living room, the folder open on the coffee table between them. Her grandmother, Miss Ruby Parker, adjusted her reading glasses and studied the documents with the sharp eye of someone who'd survived 8 decades of people trying to trick her. "Baby," she said finally, "this looks real, but it also looks dangerous. I know. That's what scares me. You should be scared, but you should also be thinking about what this could mean." Miss Ruby set down the papers. "Your whole life, You've been taking care of people. Patients, me, everyone but yourself. This man is handing you a chance to take care of a whole community. Grandma, what if I get killed? These are criminals we're talking about. Miss Ruby reached over and squeezed Victoria's hand. Baby, let me tell you something about criminals. They count on good people being too scared to fight back. They win because we let them win. She gestured toward the window, toward the neighborhood they both loved. Look outside. Look at these streets. You think things gonna get better if good people keep walking away? The next morning, Victoria called Harrison. I'll do it, but I have conditions. Name them. First, I want full ownership, no strings attached. Second, I want the FBI contact information so I can coordinate directly with them. Third, I want a security team. Done. Anything else? Yeah. I want Vincent Torino to think I'm just another naive black girl who got lucky. Let him underestimate me. Harrison smiled for the first time since the conversation began. Miss Parker, I think Vincent Torino is about to make a very big mistake. The Riverside Hotel sat on Malcolm X Boulevard, a 7-story brick building with Art Deco details and a commanding view of Marcus Garvey Park. From the outside, it looked legitimate. Bellhops in crisp uniforms, a doorman, guests coming and going. But Victoria's trained eye caught the details others missed. The guests who never carried luggage, the maintenance workers who showed up at odd hours, the cash payments that bypassed the front desk entirely. It's more sophisticated than I expected, she told FBI agent Sarah Chen during their first meeting. They sat in a coffee shop in Brooklyn, far from prying eyes. Vincent Torino is smart, Agent Chen replied. He's been washing money through hotels, restaurants and construction companies for 15 years. Never leaves a paper trail we can follow. What changed? Harrison Caldwell changed. When he decided to cooperate, he gave us access to financial records going back 5 years. We can see the pattern now, but we need real-time evidence of active money laundering. Agent Chen slid a small device across the table. Recording device, looks like a fitness tracker. Wear it whenever you're dealing with Torino or his people. Victoria pocketed the device. How dangerous is this? Very. Vincent Torino has killed people for less than what you're about to do. The first week as owner of the Riverside Hotel was like trying to navigate a minefield while blindfolded. Victoria moved carefully, observing everything, trusting no one. The hotel manager, Carlos Rivera, was smooth, professional, and absolutely terrified when he learned about the ownership change. Miss Parker, he said, wringing his hands in her new office, I hope you'll find everything in order. I'm sure I will, Victoria replied, watching his face carefully. I'm not planning any major changes right away. I want to understand how things work first. Carlos visibly relaxed. That's wise. The hotel has very specific operational procedures. I'm sure it does. That evening, as Victoria reviewed the books, the patterns Agent Chen had described jumped out at her. Payments to elite cleaning services, $15,000 per month for a hotel that contracted its cleaning to a legitimate company. Premium security consulting, $8,000 monthly for services that were never actually provided. The money was being washed through her hotel at a rate of approximately $50,000 per month. Her phone buzzed. Text from an unknown number. Welcome to the neighborhood. We should talk soon. VT. Vincent Torino didn't wait long. He walked into the hotel lobby 3 days later like he owned it, which in many ways he did. Tall, impeccably dressed, with the kind of smile that made Victoria's skin crawl. Miss Parker, he said, approaching the front desk where she was working. Vincent Torino, I've been looking forward to meeting you. Mr. Torino. Victoria kept her voice neutral. What can I do for you? Actually, I'm here to see what I can do for you. He gestured around the lobby. Beautiful place. I'd hate to see anything happen to it. The threat was subtle but clear. I'm not sure what you mean. Vincent's smile widened. Of course you don't. You're new to the hospitality business. There are certain protocols that ensure smooth operations, arrangements that benefit everyone. What kind of arrangements? The kind that kept this hotel profitable under previous management. Carlos can explain the details. He handed her a business card. "I'm sure you'll find our partnership mutually beneficial." After he left, Victoria immediately called Carlos to her office. "Tell me about the arrangements," she said simply. Carlos shifted uncomfortably. "Miss Parker, I think there's been a misunderstanding." "Carlos." Victoria's voice was steel. "I own this hotel now. I need to know exactly what's been happening here." The truth came out in a flood. The fake vendor invoices, the cash payments, the special guests who paid for rooms they never used. Carlos had been following orders, terrified of what would happen if he refused. "How much money are we talking about?" Victoria asked. "Maybe $600,000 last year. But Miss Parker, if you try to stop it—" He didn't finish the sentence. That night, Victoria called Agent Chen. "I've got confirmation. They're washing at least $50,000 a month through fake vendors." "Can you get evidence of the actual cash handoffs?" "I think so, but Chen, they're already suspicious. I need to be really careful." "Victoria, if you want out, now's the time. Once you start gathering evidence, there's no going back." Victoria thought about her grandmother's words, about good people being too scared to fight back. "I'm not backing down." The next few weeks were a delicate dance. Victoria played the role of the naive new owner, asking innocent questions while secretly documenting everything. She photographed invoices, recorded conversations, and slowly built a case that would bring down Vincent Torino's entire operation. But Vincent was getting impatient. "Miss Parker," he said during his next visit, "I'm concerned that you haven't implemented our standard procedures yet." "I'm still learning the business," Victoria replied. "These things take time." "Time is something we don't have much of." His voice carried a new edge. "I need to know you're committed to our partnership." "Of course I am." "Good. Then you won't mind if we use the hotel for a special event next week. Private party. Very exclusive. We'll handle all the arrangements." Victoria's heart pounded, but she kept her voice steady. "What kind of event?" "The kind where cash changes hands and no questions are asked." That night, Victoria met with Agent Chen and her team in a rented warehouse in Queens. "This is it," Agent Chen said. "They're planning to use your hotel for a major money laundering operation. If we can catch them in the act, we'll have everything we need," finished Agent Rodriguez, Chen's partner. "But Victoria, this is when it gets really dangerous. Once that money is in your hotel, you become a target." "I understand." "Do you?" Agent Chen leaned forward. "Because once we make arrests, Vincent Torino is going to know exactly who gave him up. Your life will be in danger." Victoria thought about walking away, about going back to her quiet life as a night shift nurse, about letting someone else fight this battle. Then she thought about her neighborhood, about the drug money flowing through her community, destroying lives and futures. "I'm in." The special event was scheduled for a Friday night. Vincent's people would use the hotel's conference room for what appeared to be a legitimate business meeting, but was actually a complex money laundering operation involving multiple criminal organizations. Victoria spent the day setting up hidden cameras and coordinating with the FBI surveillance team positioned in nearby buildings. Every detail had to be perfect. At 8 p.m., they began arriving, well-dressed men and women carrying briefcases, looking like any other group of business professionals. But Victoria recognized the signs, the way they scanned the room, the bulges under their jackets, the nervous energy of people handling dirty money. Vincent arrived last, surveying the scene with satisfaction. "Miss Parker," he said, approaching her at the front desk, "thank you for accommodating us tonight." "Of course. I trust you understand the importance of discretion?" "Absolutely." At 10:30 p.m., Vincent gave her a signal. Victoria discreetly activated the recording device Agent Chen had given her and approached the conference room. Through the partially open door, she could see briefcases open on the table, stacks of cash being counted and sorted. Vincent was at the center of it all, directing the operation like a conductor leading an orchestra. "The Washington Heights operation generated $340,000 this month," she heard him say. "The Bronx accounts for another $220,000. All of it needs to be cleaned through the hotel invoices by Monday." Victoria's device captured every word. But as she turned to leave, Her foot caught the edge of a loose carpet. She stumbled, catching herself against the doorframe. Vincent looked up, his eyes meeting hers through the crack in the door. For a moment, time stopped. Then Vincent smiled, a cold, dangerous expression that made Victoria's blood freeze. "Miss Parker," he said loudly, "please come in. I think you should see this." Victoria had two choices, run or commit fully to her cover story. She chose to commit. "I'm sorry to interrupt," she said, pushing the door open. "I just wanted to make sure you had everything you needed." "How thoughtful." Vincent's voice was silk over steel. "Actually, we were just discussing your role in our organization." "My role?" "You see, Miss Parker, successful partnerships require trust, and trust requires proof of commitment." He gestured to the money on the table. "I'd like you to personally handle the deposit of these funds into the hotel's accounts tomorrow. Consider it your initiation." Victoria realized she was trapped. If she refused, Vincent would know she wasn't truly cooperative. If she agreed, she'd be actively participating in money laundering. "Of course," she said. "I'd be honored." Vincent's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Wonderful. Carlos will give you the account numbers and procedures. I'm sure you'll find the work educational." The next morning, Victoria sat in her office staring at $560,000 in cash, knowing that FBI agents were watching from across the street, waiting for her signal. She picked up her phone and dialed Agent Chen. "It's happening now," she said simply. "Are you ready?" Victoria looked at the money, thought about Vincent Torino's smile, and made her choice. "I'm ready." 20 minutes later, FBI agents stormed the hotel. They found Vincent Torino in the penthouse suite, calmly eating breakfast as if he'd been expecting them. The money was still in Victoria's office, along with detailed records of the laundering operation. "Vincent Torino," Agent Chen announced, "you're under arrest for money laundering, racketeering, and conspiracy." Vincent looked at Victoria, who stood behind the agents. "Well played, Miss Parker, though I suspect this isn't over." "For you it is," Victoria replied. As the agents led Vincent away, he called back over his shoulder, "You have no idea what you've just started." The arrests made national news. The FBI's takedown of the Torino money laundering operation was the largest in New York history, involving multiple hotels, restaurants, and construction companies across 3 states. But for Victoria, the real victory was smaller and more personal. 3 months later, she stood in the same hotel lobby where Vincent Torino had tried to intimidate her. But everything was different now. The walls were painted in warm earth tones. Local artists had contributed murals celebrating Harlem's history. The furniture was comfortable but elegant. Fresh flowers sat on every table. Most importantly, the lobby was full of people. Legitimate hotel guests, neighborhood kids doing homework, elderly residents meeting for their weekly coffee club. The Riverside Hotel had become what Victoria had envisioned, not just a business, but a community hub. "Miss Victoria," called out Marcus, a 10-year-old from the block who came by every day after school, "can you help me with my math homework?" "In a minute, baby," Victoria replied, finishing up with a guest checking in. Her phone buzzed. Text message from Harrison. "Saw the article in the Times about the community center you're opening. Proud of you." Victoria smiled and typed back, "Thank you for giving me the chance to make a difference." His response came quickly. "Thank you for showing me what courage looks like." That evening, as Victoria locked up the hotel, she paused to read the bronze plaque that had been installed by the front door. "The Riverside Hotel where everyone belongs." Beneath it, in smaller letters, "Dedicated to those brave enough to fight for what's right." As she walked home through the Harlem streets she'd grown up on, Victoria reflected on the journey that had brought her here. 6 months ago, she'd been a night shift nurse. Now she was a successful businesswoman, FBI cooperating witness, and living proof that sometimes the people others underestimate are exactly the ones who change the world. Her phone rang. It was her grandmother. "How was your day, baby?" "Good, Grandma. Really good." "That's my girl. You know what you did took real courage, right?" Victoria smiled, looking back at the hotel glowing warmly in the evening light. I know, Grandma, but sometimes courage is the only choice you have. The Riverside Hotel stood as proof that sometimes, when we're brave enough to look past our prejudices and stand up to injustice, we discover that ordinary people can do extraordinary things. And sometimes, the person who saves you is the same person you never thought to trust. In a world that too often judges people by their appearance rather than their character, Victoria Parker had proven that assumptions can be dangerously wrong, and that real strength comes not from wealth or power, but from the courage to do what's right, even when it's dangerous. Stories like Victoria's remind us that heroes come in all forms, and sometimes they're the ones we least expect. If this story touched your heart and made you think twice about your own assumptions, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. Because every week we bring you more incredible true stories of people who refuse to let others define their worth. Drop a comment below and tell us, have you ever been judged by your appearance? Or have you caught yourself making assumptions about someone else? Your story could inspire someone else to be better, and if you're inspired by Victoria's courage to prove people wrong, you absolutely have to watch our last video. Family abandoned their daughter for being too dark. 23 years later, her success shocks everyone. It's another powerful story about someone who turned prejudice into purpose. The link is the description. Until next time, remember, never judge a book by its cover, because you never know when that person might just save your life and change your heart forever.